Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Any Anons here ever been abducted? It happened to me about 2 years ago when I was at my lakeside house in North Dakota. Started out like any other normal evening. Wasn't on any drugs. I don't drink alcohol, don't take any medication, and I don't smoke. I was watching TV. I got up and started packing my tackle box to go fishing early the next morning. I fell asleep around 11:30 and was awoken by a strange ringing noise, kind of like what you would hear after a grenade going off or something. I found myself unable to move, and something was telling me to look at the right side of my bed. That's when I saw 3 figures slowly moving towards me. Well, not really moving, but kind of gliding. I really can't explain it. At this point, I was freaking out. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move my head. I was helpless at this point. Next thing I remember, I was on this strange square platform that kind of felt and looked like cardboard. It was very lightweight, and I was surprised that it was holding my body weight. I still couldn't move at this point. I remember thinking whatever is going to happen anyway, so I might as well try to accept my fate. The walls around me were extremely bright, had an orange tint to them, but nothing reflected off of it. What seemed like an eternity, probably around 5 to 10 minutes in my estimation. One humanoid-looking figure glided towards me. I still have no idea how it came into the room when there was no visible door or anything. I'm assuming that they can move through solid objects. The humanoid was about 4.5 feet tall, had olive-colored skin and no hair. I'll finish typing this up in a second. This is not a bullshit story. I'm not writing this for creepypasta reasons. After I saw this humanoid figure coming up to me, I was strangely calm. In my head, I kept thinking, why am I here? What's the point? To which I instantly heard a response that was not in my own voice, that told me to remain calm and listen to what they had to tell me. I remember laying there for another 5 minutes or so with no activity around me. The humanoid had disappeared after asking me if I was ready to hear what they had to tell me. It was oddly quiet. There was no noise whatsoever, almost a deafening silence. There was also this funny smell, kind of reminded me of rotten eggs. The humanoid reappeared and began to tell me that the world is actually a simulation, and that in the year 2016, this simulation would be replaced with another one. During that process, humanity will lose all of their memory, and new memories will be replaced with the out-of-date ones. It was almost as if this humanoid was talking to me, as if I was a child. It had told me that in order for me to grasp this concept, it had to be broken down in the most simplistic way, in order not to confuse me. I had asked, "What do you mean a simulation? Are we in this simulation right now?" The humanoid then proceeded to tell me that I was in a halfway point between the simulation and their reality. Next thing I know, it was 4:30 a.m., and I was laying in my bed sweating like an animal. I rushed to the bathroom to splash some water on my face and took 3 aspirins. I tried to come up with ways to explain this, but came to the conclusion that I couldn't. I never went fishing that day. This experience has resulted in 2 failed and hero attempts and severe depression. I know it's not much to go off of, but it's all that I can remember. If you guys want to ask some questions, fire away.
What was told to you is true. They told you the future. There will be a man, young man. He will come bearing a blight so potent to the human race that we will not be able to accept the reality of what he has created. This man will wear a neck of black and white. On the day his will is carried out, the fate of our world will be completely in his hands. Remember this: the box is a gateway to God.
I believe you, OP. I might have been abducted once. I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw a UFO hovering in the middle of the street through my window, which I felt compelled to do. I stared at it for a few minutes, surprised that this is really happening, trying to spot any aliens in around the ship, when I realized that if I could see them, then they could see me. So I hid in the bathroom. After seeing a bright light flash, I went back to my room to see what was happening. only to see a very fast-moving light far out in the distance, moving further and further away until it disappeared. Sometimes I wonder why I woke up just before they left. And after years of thought, I have come to the conclusion that I started becoming as forgetful as I am today right around that time. Sometimes I connect these thoughts and it terrifies me. I wish I could remember more.
I remember being overcome recently with the powerful feeling that the physical universe isn't all there is to existence, that there had to be something more out there, that this was too boring to be all there is, and that physicality felt very restraining. I felt like I should be able to go through walls and fly and such, thinking things like, what is this matter? What the fuck is that? Seriously, what the fuck is this all about? Just this feeling I couldn't shake that this isn't all there is, and there's something more I just can't perceive. This went on for a few months, and then I was my first UFO. Then I saw another, which appeared a week later, right as I was retelling the story to my brother. Almost like it knew I was telling someone about them, and decided to show up. Maybe they sensed my yearning to know the truth during those months, and that's why they came. I can't say anything for sure, but it's just speculation. This living is so weird.
OP, have you noticed any weird changes in your life since these events happened? Could be physical, mental, spiritual. I know you mentioned severe depression, so I take it you have a negative impression of what's happened to you or the info you were given. I had something similar happen to me last year and received pretty much the same info, except they didn't give me a specific date. The way it was shown to me was that the way the simulation works as of now is very stiff and rigid, kind of like the Earth element. As we move forward in time, reality starts to loosen up more and more, and what was once rigid will become fluid like water, which is more like the dream world or astral plane. This is the state of being we long to return to, but for most there is no conscious awareness of it. When the transition is over, it will have been like what we're experiencing now was just some crazy dream that was happening in slow motion. Since then, I've experienced a complete 180 in the way I eat, think, and feel, becoming more sensitive in every way. I had to stop using Wi-Fi or any kind of 3G or 4G device because they started to give me headaches. I've found using a cordless phone or being near its base is the worst. I opened up to some people I trust about all this and still got some weird looks, so I just keep it to myself now and act normal. But the reality is, I'm not the same person I was a year ago.
No weird changes as far as I can tell, besides being severely depressed for a year and a half.
I have a story that happened when I was 11. I don't necessarily think it was an abduction, but I never could think of a good explanation. B11, summertime hanging out with my friend D. We love to explore, always exploring the woods and abandoned houses. One day we decided we were going into the woods behind a recreational baseball field. Nothing out of the ordinary in these woods. It's around 12 when we left to go into the woods. I remember because we just ate lunch at D's house, and his house was the closest to the woods. We enter the woods and start using our pocket knives to mark X's on the trees in case we get lost. We mark every other tree. We get about a half mile in the woods. It's around 1 o'clock now. We start hearing something within 50 feet of us moving fast through the woods. The woods have gotten pretty dense by this point, so it's hard to get a visual. Figure it's just a deer or some other medium-sized animal, maybe even a small bear, but it was not a common area for them. Keep walking through the woods. We begin to hear a loud, low-frequency humming noise. It's almost like you can feel it through your body. It stops after about 2 minutes. We continued walking, but now we hear the movement again, and now we see something. A tall figure running about the same direction as before in the woods. It's on 2 legs. We start running now, into the woods more and more. Whatever this is running the same direction from us, in the same direction. I trip on a root and D stops to help me. I get up, but we begin to hear this humming sound again. It's louder and more powerful than before. We start to move, but we notice whatever that humanoid thing that was stalking us is now looking at us. I couldn't make out the face. There were these 3 glowing dots on it, which were not symmetrical at all. Start getting lightheaded. It becomes really hard to move. I fall over and black out. Same thing happens to D. I woke up nowhere near the same area as before. In a patch of birch trees, they are all dead. I start yelling D's name. Yell for about 3, 5 minutes. My legs are very weak, I'm slightly dizzy and feel queasy. I eventually hear D call my name, so I start to move towards the direction his voice is coming from. See him, try to run towards him, but my legs give out. Get up and begin walking towards him. I notice he has a bunch of scratches on his arm. I ask what happened and he said he doesn't know, but he also says I have the same. I ask him if he knew where we were and he didn't, so we decided to walk south. I had a compass on my watch. When we began the journey, we were heading north. Walk for about 10 minutes south and we begin to hear this humming again. Everything goes black, but I can hear for a couple minutes. I hear movement around me and D and the sound of something being dragged on the ground. Eventually I can't hear anymore, and I wake up in the woods where me and D first blacked out. We wake up and it's dark. I look at my watch and it's 8 p.m. We just start running south as fast as possible and we don't stop. That humanoid is stalking us again. Those green flashing dots have a tracer effect against the darkness of the night. We run and run and run. We eventually get to the edge of the woods. The humanoid is gone. We can't hear it or see it. We go home for the night. We never saw anything like that again. We went into the woods a day or so afterwards, and on the trees that we marked the X's were scratched the fuck up. Looked like a bear marking a tree. I still talk to D now. Every so often we will get a beer, and he still remembers distinctively as I do that very, very strange day.
I've been abducted monthly, since basically always by grays, and I spit in your face every time someone says they're evil or something. I'm entirely sure they do scientific research. And they do care about the subject. Me. At first, as a kid, they showed or manipulated my memories and let me think that a normal hospital thing was happening. As I grew, and I knew these were not real, and I had secondary effects, fear in daily situations, they seemed to change the practice. Then, in adolescence, they didn't manipulate the memories, but erased them. That has been the longest period. The day I got abducted, I remembered nothing. I woke up pretty scared in the night, turned on the lights, and went back to sleep again. Due to some rare things, as testicle pain, a mark in my arm, and me doing the internet thing, I find a shit ton of alien info. Even though most of it's shit, I became pretty convinced that I was getting abducted. With time, thinking about the things they've done for me, the evident good care and the constant trying of making the subject, me, not suffer by erasing or manipulating the abductions. I started to become less scared and more interested in them. By the age of 23, I got my first apparently non-manipulated abduction. I saw consciously the light coming from the window and thought I knew it was the first time I saw it. I already perfectly knew what was happening and what was going to happen. Interesting thought, they seem to know how to manipulate the conscious but not the subconscious. Then I got paralyzed and taken to the light. Once inside, I was already laying in that alien bed or platform. I could see them doing things, the well-known grays. I tried to see all of that, controlling the extreme emotions I was experiencing. Without any communication, one of them came close to me and I was paralyzed like something went in my ear. I got so scared I almost passed out. But then another of them came and did the same thing to my right testicle. The third one did nothing. He was on the right side observing. Without any word, the light enveloped me again, and I felt how I was coming back to my room. Although I believed that I was being abducted, such an experience made me consider going to a psychologist. But I'd rather think about what happened. I came to the conclusion that they knew what I wanted, to know more, and they understood. They allowed me to be conscious in this test, paralyzed though. They would analyze how I react to that and consider if I was able or not to continue or go back to mental manipulation. I understood their probable plan. I understood they're nothing but scientists. They were the scientists, and I was the chimpanzee. But why doesn't this fear disappear? It actually did, months after that. Since then, I have had some conscious abductions where I can't see or ask anything, at least not yet. But it became clear to me that they do not want to harm us, but the opposite. And they are not evil. I think they're trying to understand us, or testing us, doing any scientific research where we are the subjects. If it was a bad thing, they wouldn't care about pain and suffering, but they consider it and try to make it as easy for the subject as they can. Memory erase and manipulation doesn't seem like an easy thing. They might have developed it for us humans to have as less terrifying sessions as possible. I wish they could interact with the subjects and let us know, but it seems that it's not in their actual to-do list.
Now you can split hairs over what qualifies as evil, but no one will be convinced that there is a lack of cruelty in your recollection.
I was hesitant to write this, but a friend insisted that I do so. I was first abducted in 1987. I was 12 years old. I say abducted, but it's not like that. Actually, you go willingly. It's scary, but it's exciting too, and they're somehow able to make you feel fine about things. It's not until later that you feel bad or like you've been violated. And they don't do a lot of probing or anything like that. That's Hollywood bullshit. They look inside of people sometimes, but they have machines that do it. Not really machines, but it's like a room where things get done. It's hard to explain, so just imagine that all the walls are kind of like X-ray machines. That's the easiest way to describe it. Sometimes there would be others there and they would be looking into them, or they'd put them under and cut them open, but not usually. They took tissue samples from all of us, I think. And they never put you under or gave you any anesthetic or anything. They just poke you. Like those things they take samples of the ocean floor? Like that, but really small. They pull out tiny chunks of you. It's usually done on the ass or on the lower back. Mostly they talked with me. Just questions, and they'd show me things like television shows, and they'd ask me questions about them. I think the walls measure our reaction to certain questions too, the same as they take X-rays. I don't know that, but it's the feeling that I got. They never let you ask questions about what they are doing. Even once I got friendly with a few of them, they just do not like it when you ask them questions. They hate it. You can't understand their language. It just sounds like a long sound. I'm positive that we'll never be able to communicate with them in their language. I should mention that these are the grays that you hear about, except they aren't gray. They are sort of beige, and it's clothes or a covering anyway. They aren't naked. I don't know if there are others. People say there are, but I've only ever met these. Anyway, you cannot understand them, but they can understand you. And they can put thoughts into your head, but they can't hear your thoughts. You have to speak to them. They cannot hear very well, or else they are not good at understanding English, so you have to speak loudly and slowly. I don't know if they understand other languages, but I'm pretty sure they would. They are interested in all of us, in everything that goes on. They like a lot of things about our culture, too. They like some of our music. Bluegrass is their favorite so far as I've seen. They like it a lot. They love that instrument that looks like a gourd with 13 strings. Love it. But they cannot stand horns or horn music, so they hate classical music and jazz. They've taken me just about every 2 years, I'd say, since 1987. Just about. Sometimes it's more often, and I didn't go at all between 1995 and 2000. They usually keep me for what feels like a day, but it turns out to be about 4 hours, usually. The longest I stayed with them was 3 weeks. During that time, they made me make phone calls and keep up appearances. They aren't really bad. Well, I was going to say people, but they're not really bad people or whatever. The two that I got sort of close with told me to call them Jack and Gina. I don't know if they are male or female or even if they have different sexes, but I know that those aren't their real names. Those are just names that they told me. They will make contact with Earth on a wide scale in 2047. That's the year when they'll land here or colonize or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what their plan is. They don't seem to be evil or dangerous. Their planet is, so they told me anyway, a very long way away. They couldn't explain to me how far, they said, because it was too far for me to understand, and it was also close to the side. I have no idea what that meant, but it's always stuck with me. Home is too far away for you to understand, but also close to the side. We don't have anything that they want, so they told me. So I don't really know why they come here, or why they've taken so many of us, or why they've gotten to be friends with me. They do not have any religion, and they don't need oxygen or water or trees or anything, I don't think. They don't eat people. I don't think they want to breed with us, or genetically engineer us. I don't know what they want. They've got videos of all sorts of stuff, and they showed me recordings of Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons and all sorts of other human-like things or whatever. And they showed me a video of the pyramids being built, and this huge stone building that I guess is lost somewhere or was destroyed, but it was in Europe. I could tell from the video. They have videos of them talking with all sorts of people throughout the history of Earth. They showed me some of them and asked me questions about them, but I couldn't understand any of them because I only speak English, and even English from 300 or 400 years ago is so different that I could hardly understand it. So I told them that they probably knew more about it than I did. I was last abducted 3 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure that I'll go up again in a couple of years, but I'm not sure after that. The whole program, or whatever they call it, is going to change in July 2025. I think they said on the 8th or 18th I wasn't hearing very well. They weren't trying to intimidate me or even to warn me, so I don't think we have anything to worry about. I hope they don't show the videos they took of me when they first started taking me because I was so scared and young, and they are embarrassing.
This next one is from a few months ago, where the gray warns of fires becoming the norm.
Don't know how to start this, so I'll just start from the beginning, I guess. October 3rd of this year, I became one of the so-called abductees. I went to bed just before midnight and I had a hard time falling asleep. All of a sudden, I noticed a bright white light outside my window. It grew and grew in both size and intensity, until it was like the entire room was lit up brighter than the sun. I felt a weird tingling sensation run through my entire body, and my arms and legs felt as if they had been deprived of blood flow for a while, and then the pins and needles of blood rushing back. I was unable to move, yet I was fully conscious the whole time. The light was so bright that I was unable to see anything at all. After some time, it could have been seconds, it could have been minutes, the light dimmed and I found myself sitting in some kind of metal chair in a pale blue room. I could not pinpoint any light source. It was as if the entire room itself was illuminated. In front of me sat this entity. He resembled what most would call a gray alien, but his features were more defined. Chiseled almost. He had large dark eyes set deep in his head, a small, almost square nose, and a thin mouth. I have to be honest here. I'm normally a very anxious person, not brave in the least, but I felt no fear at all in this situation. Then he spoke. First in a few different languages I didn't understand, though a few of them sounded familiar. He then spoke English to me as if he knew that I understood. I'm not a native English speaker. The entity welcomed me by my name and said he had an important message. Then he asked if I was comfortable. I replied that I was and asked who he was and what this message entailed. "We are you," he answered, and took a long pause before speaking again. "Your planet is in peril. If you don't act soon, extreme weather will be the new norm, forest fires and drought. And if you do not take measures to stop it, the world will enter nuclear war in 2027. Only a very few will survive, doomed to live deep underground and rebuild what they can of society." I didn't know what to say to this. Frankly, I thought this was all a very vivid dream. After a little while, I managed to ask him, "Where are you from?" "Earth," he replied. "We have traveled through space-time in an effort to reverse the way things are going, to stop the future we are living in. You are only one of many. Please do not fail us. Don't fail yourselves. I am a nobody in real life, unemployed, with no affiliation to any political party or government agencies." I told him this, but he did not respond. "What is your name?" I asked. "What do I call you?" He responded with a single word, "Victor." He didn't say anything else after that. He just kept looking at me while the light in the room got brighter and brighter. When the light subsided, I found myself sitting in my living room wearing only my boxer shorts. The clock was a few minutes to 10, 2 hours before everything happened. I just had to get this off my chest. Now you know. I'd like to hear from others who share my experience. He said I was not the only one.
Has anyone here that has encountered aliens heard a high-pitched fast whisper? I think I may have encountered aliens twice in my life during sleep paralysis, but I'm not sure. I get sleep paralysis quite often, but only twice have I ever seen and heard things, and both times there was a high-pitched fast whisper. The first time I woke up on my stomach. This never happens, and I felt extremely disoriented, but I could still move. Behind me I could hear this whisper, and it sounded like multiple entities. I tried to stand up and it was difficult. Halfway up I fell back onto my bed and felt like I fell through my bed and the floor into a black space. I was there for a few seconds and then woke up. My second experience was waking up and seeing a shadowy figure in the shape of a small gray alien standing right next to me. Once I saw them, it raised its arm and stuck something in my neck. I felt a sharp pinch, and then the gray melted into the bed, and I once again heard that high-pitched, fast whisper. If anyone else has had a similar experience, please let me know. Otherwise, I would just chalk it up to regular sleep paralysis.
Where do you live? Region? Population? Noteworthy familial diseases or afflictions? Where were you when these events took place? Do you have any scars or markings?
Rural Ireland. Very low population. I only have one neighbor, and my auntie says she can talk to ghosts and other beings. She also said my uncle dreamed about someone's death when he was young, and then it happened, but he doesn't like to talk about it. I don't have any scars or anything like that. During sleep paralysis, I can sometimes leave my body and walk around, but I've never been able to prove to myself this isn't anything other than some sort of lucid dream, but I like to believe it's real. Also, when I was about 5 years old, I had some sort of awakening. I woke up to these strong vibrations and maybe some sort of portal in front of me. I might be misremembering that detail, and I had no memories of anything before that and said to myself, this is the first day of my life. The best way I can describe it is if you took someone's brain, wiped all their memories, and put it into someone else's body.
I've had a lot of sleep paralysis involving alien visions, every single time they are in the same corner in my bedroom, far from my bed. They don't interact with me aside from staring, and I actually manage to struggle so much that I break out of the paralysis. I left my video recording software open one night, and in the morning, after having one of these sleep paralysis, I went to edit the footage as I was recording a game before, and needed to cut out all of the blank sections since I left it recording overnight. When I put it into my editor, where it shows the audio levels, something was there in the audio. It wasn't too high, but you can see the jump in audio. I listened to it and turned it up in Audacity so I could hear it better. It sounds like crackling with someone humming. It has a heavenly tone to it, like a church choir, but it's one person. No music, just the humming. My browser wasn't open, so there was nothing that could have played to create this sound. I don't know if it had to do with the sleep paralysis, but it's very coincidental.
Okay, so this is going to sound crazy, but I used to get sleep paralysis as a kid, maybe a handful of times. I was raised Catholic, but was very afraid of dying. The first time I had it, I panicked and struggled hard. Then I somehow figured if I just relaxed, I could regain movement faster. The last time I had it, I was like 11 or whatever. So I was in bed, eyes closed, and the next day, I'm awake. I could not move. No big deal, happened a few times before. This time I heard a child laughing. I panic. The voice splits. I hear 2 children laughing. Splits again. A dozen children laughing. What do you want? I yell in my brain. You want my soul? Take it. Just let me live. Silence. No more laughing. No sound. I can move my eyes again. My body works again, too. Dead silent. It's 5 a.m. No one in my room. Parents are asleep. A waking dream. Aliens. Ghosts. Demons. I don't know. But I've never experienced anything like it again. One more thing. I'm middle-age, average height, and build, but still get IDD everywhere. Did I accidentally trade my soul for an abnormally long life? I'm even more scared of death now. So all I can say is, I really hope so.
One night randomly while laying in my bed, I experienced a sort of auditory vision in which some being claiming to be my lover from a distant world far, far away said they needed something from me. It engaged my play circuit and encouraged it to make a gyroscope around myself. Then it counted down as if launching off. It then started to randomly state measures of light years as if it were calculating for something, going everywhere from tens of thousands to millions. Then all of a sudden, what I can only describe as a scene right out of a Looney Tunes episode suddenly played itself out. The passenger whom was traveling in this spaceship somewhere ended abruptly yelling, "Oh no, 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 bang, crash, kerclunk." It legit sounded like a skit Marvin the Martian would have done, not even kidding. Lols. One other thing about the stranger spoke with this peculiar type of highly altered voice filter, made them sound like what I can only describe as a shadowy robot. And when I asked them why they felt so familiar to me, they simply responded with, half joking, I got the sense from it, no reason.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.